The ship was bigger than anything Taiho had ever seen. It hung in the darkness of space like a floating city made of silver and light. The alien vessel was 300 kilometers long. Earth's largest warship looked like a toy next to it. Admiral. Taiho Park stood on the bridge of the human flagship and watched the alien ship through the main screen. He was 52 years old. His hair was gray at the sides. His face was calm, but his hands were tight behind his back. "They are requesting communication," said his officer. "Open the channel," Taiho replied. The screen changed. An alien appeared. It was tall and thin, almost like a stick figure made of pale blue skin. Its eyes were large and black. It had no nose, only 2 small holes. When it spoke, its voice came through the translator as smooth and cold. "I am Ambassador Kel of the Galactic Nexus. We represent 4,000 civilizations. We have governed this galaxy for 50,000 years. You will listen." Taiho did not move. "I am Admiral Taiho Park of Earth. We are listening." Kel's thin mouth moved into something like a smile. "Your species has spread to 12 worlds without permission. This is a violation of Nexus law. You have 2 choices. Join the Nexus and accept our governance, or refuse, and we will take your worlds by force." The bridge was silent. Every officer watched their admiral. Taiho took a slow breath. He had prepared for this moment for 20 years. Every human leader had known this day would come. The galaxy was full of life, and sooner or later, that life would find Earth. Ambassador Kel Taiho said, "I have a message for your Nexus Council. It is not a threat. It is a warning." Kel tilted his head. The gesture looked strange on his alien face. "A warning? You are 1 species. We are 4,000. What could you possibly warn us about?" Taiho stepped forward. His voice was steady and clear. "We come from a world called Earth. Your scientists will study it and find that it is a death world. Our gravity would crush most species in your nexus. Our atmosphere is 30% oxygen. That is a fire waiting to happen. Our planet is covered in predators, poisons, and diseases. The water is filled with things that eat flesh. The land is filled with things that hunt." Kel's large eyes blinked slowly. He seemed almost amused. Taiho continued, "Humans did not evolve in a garden. We evolved in a war. We learned to run for hours until our prey collapsed from exhaustion. We learned to eat almost anything. We learned to survive heat, cold, drought, and flood. We tamed wolves and made them our companions. We tamed horses and rode them into battle. We split the atom and chose not to destroy ourselves with it." "Fascinating history," Kel said. His tone was polite but dismissive. "But history does not win wars. Ships do. Weapons do. Numbers do. You have none of these in sufficient quantity." "You are not listening," Taiho said. "I am not threatening you. I am telling you what we are. Humans are not peaceful. We have fought each other for our entire existence. We have killed more of our own kind than you can imagine. We have survived ice ages, plagues, and world wars. We are still here." Kel made a soft sound that might have been laughter. "Every young species believes it is special. Every young species believes it is strong. The Nexus has seen 1,000 species like yours. They all submitted. They all accepted their place. Then you have never met a species like us," Taiho said. "Leave us alone. Go back to your council and tell them that Earth does not want war. But if you force war upon us, you will regret it. Not because we are cruel, not because we are evil, but because we do not know how to stop. We do not know how to surrender. We will fight until there is nothing left to fight with, and then we will fight with our bare hands." The bridge was completely silent. Even the hum of the ship's engine seemed to fade. Kel studied Taiho for a long moment. His black eyes showed nothing. No fear, no anger. Only a kind of tired patience, like an adult watching a child throw a tantrum. "I will deliver your message," Kel said finally. "But I will also deliver my recommendation. The Nexus should not negotiate with primitive species. It only encourages them." The screen went dark. Taiho turned to face his crew. They were young, most of them. They had grown up in a time of peace. They had never seen war. Now war was coming, and it would be unlike anything humanity had faced before. "Send a message to Earth Command," Taiho said. "Tell President Kim that the Nexus has rejected our warning. Tell her to begin preparations." "What preparations, sir?" his officer asked. Taiho looked back at the screen. The alien ship was already turning away, heading back toward the distant stars. "All of them," he said. 3 months later, Taiho received word from Earth. The Nexus Council had voted. 4,000 species had agreed. War would begin immediately. The Nexus expected victory within 3 weeks. Taiho read the message twice. Then he walked to his quarters and sat alone in the darkness. He thought about his wife, who had died 10 years ago. He thought about his son, who served on a colony ship near Jupiter. He thought about all the young men and women who would die in the coming war. He did not feel anger. He did not feel fear. He felt only a deep, heavy sadness. Humans did not want war. They had tried so hard to avoid it. They had built their colonies far from Nexus territory. They had hidden their military strength. They had sent diplomats and scientists and artists, hoping to show the galaxy that humanity could be a friend. But the galaxy did not want friends. The galaxy wanted subjects. Taiho stood up and looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, alien fleets were gathering. Somewhere out there, millions of soldiers were preparing to invade human space. They thought they knew what war was. They thought they understood violence. They had fought their careful, limited wars for 50,000 years, and they had always won. But they had never fought humans. Taiho closed his eyes and remembered something his grandfather had told him long ago. The old man had survived the Korean reunification wars. He had seen things no one should see, and he had said something that Taiho never forgot. "War is not about winning," his grandfather had said. "War is about surviving." And Koreans have survived everything. Empires, invasions, occupations. We are still here. We will always be here. Taiho opened his eyes. The stars were cold and distant, but they did not frighten him. "We warned them," he whispered to the empty room. "We tried." The galaxy had made its choice. Now humanity would make its answer. The Nexus Council met on a world made of crystal. The planet was called Thresh, and it had been the center of galactic government for 30,000 years. Representatives from 4,000 species filled the great chamber. They floated on gravity platforms. They spoke through universal translators. They voted with lights that changed color. The vote was simple. Should the Nexus go to war with humanity? 4,000 lights turned red. Red meant yes. Not a single species voted against. The decision was unanimous. Ambassador Kell stood before the council and delivered his report. He spoke of the human admiral who had threatened the Nexus. He spoke of their primitive ships and their small population. He described their warning as the desperate bluff of a frightened species. "They call themselves warriors," Kell said. "They believe their history of self-destruction makes them dangerous. But they are insects compared to the Nexus. We will crush them in 3 weeks. Perhaps less," the council agreed. They had done this many times before. Young species always resisted at first. They always lost. On Earth, the news arrived at midnight. President Yoon Kim read the message in her office. She was 60 years old, with short gray hair and tired eyes. She had spent her entire career trying to avoid this moment. She failed. The next morning, she addressed the United Nations of Seoul. Every human colony watched. Every ship, every station, every outpost received her broadcast. 2 billion people listened. Yuna did not stand behind a podium. She sat in a simple chair, like a grandmother telling a story to her grandchildren. Her voice was soft but clear. "My fellow humans," she began. "The Galactic Nexus has declared war on our species. They believe we are weak. They believe we will surrender. They believe they can take our homes, our freedom, and our future." She paused. Her eyes looked directly into the camera. "They are wrong." She spoke for 10 minutes. She did not talk about glory or victory or conquest. She talked about her grandmother, who had survived the food riots of 2089. She talked about her father, who had helped build the first Mars colony. She talked about her daughter, who was pregnant with her first child. "We do not fight because we hate them," Una said. "We fight because we love each other. We fight because our children deserve to grow up free. We fight because no one has the right to tell us who we are or what we can become." She stood up slowly. "They have chosen war. They will learn what that means. May whatever gods they worship have mercy on them, because we will not." The broadcast ended. Across human space, people were silent. Then they began to move. Factories increased production. Shipyards worked around the clock. Young people lined up at recruitment centers. Old veterans came out of retirement. Humanity prepared for war. General Minho Beek was appointed Supreme Commander of all human forces. He was 65 years old, tall and thin, with a face that rarely smiled. He had fought in the Mars Rebellion when he was young. He had commanded the defense of Titan Station when pirates attacked. He had never lost a battle. Minho gathered his commanders on the military station above Earth. He spree. Add star maps across the table and began to explain his strategy. "The Nexus thinks this war will be fought in space," he said. "They are wrong. This war will be fought everywhere. In space, on planets, in computer networks, in the minds of their soldiers. We will give them no rest. We will give them no peace. We will make them pay for every kilometer they advance." His commanders listened carefully. They knew Minho's reputation. He did not believe in fair fights. He believed in winning. Deep beneath the surface of the moon, scientist Hannah Cho worked on Project Horizon. She was 40 years old, with long black hair that she kept tied back. She had not seen sunlight in 3 years. She had not seen her family in 5. Project Horizon was humanity's secret weapon. 30 years ago, a Nexus scout ship had crashed on one of Jupiter's moons. The crew was dead, but the technology survived. Hannah and her team had spent decades studying it, understanding it, and improving it. The Nexus had faster than light drives. Now humanity had them too. But the human version was better, faster, more efficient. The Nexus did not know this. The Nexus had energy shields. Now humanity had weapons that could break them. The Nexus did not know this either. And then there was the Sunbreaker Protocol. Hannah did not like to think about it. It was a weapon of last resort. A weapon that could destroy stars. She hoped they would never need to use it. "How long until the fleet is ready?" she asked her assistant. 3 weeks, he replied. "Make it 2, Hannah said. "The Nexus is coming." The first Nexus invasion fleet arrived exactly on schedule. 200 warships jumped into Earth's solar system. They were beautiful ships, long and graceful, covered in silver armor. Each one was the size of a small city. The Nexus commander was named Veth. He was old and experienced. He had conquered 12 worlds in his career. He expected this conquest to be the easiest of all. "Scan for enemy ships," Veth ordered. "No ships detected," his officer reported. "Only asteroid debris in the belt." Veth smiled. The humans were hiding. Perhaps they had already surrendered. "Move toward Earth," he commanded. "Slow and steady. Show them our power." The fleet advanced. The asteroid belt grew closer. Veth watched it on his screen without concern. Asteroids were harmless rocks. Nothing more. He was wrong. The first explosion came without warning. A Nexus cruiser disappeared in a ball of fire. Then another. Then 3 more. "What is happening?" Veth shouted. "The asteroids." His officers screamed. "They are not asteroids. They are weapons." Humanity had spent 20 years preparing for this moment. They had hollowed out thousands of asteroids and filled them with missiles, guns, and nuclear bombs. They had hidden them among the natural debris. They had waited now. They attacked. The battle lasted 11 minutes. 200 Nexus ships tried to flee. None escaped. The asteroid belt became a graveyard of burning metal and frozen bodies. Veth's flagship was the last to die. In his final moments, he sent a message to the Nexus Council. They were ready, he said. They knew we were coming. They were waiting. Send more ships. Send all of them. These humans are not what we thought. The message ended. The ship exploded. On Earth, General Minho received the battle report. He read it carefully, then nodded once. Good, he said. Now they know we are serious. Now, the real war begins. Admiral Tai-Ho stood on his bridge and watched the debris field on his screen. 200 enemy ships destroyed. 0 human casualties. It was a perfect victory, but Tai-Ho did not celebrate. He knew this was only the beginning. The Nexus had millions of ships. They would send more. They would keep sending them until one side was destroyed. Send a message to the Nexus, he told his officer. Tell them we are willing to negotiate peace. The officer looked surprised. Sir, we just won. I know, Tai-Ho said, but winning battles is not the same as winning wars. If they want to stop, we should let them stop. The message was sent. The Nexus did not reply. They sent 2,000 ships instead. The colony world of New Busan was beautiful. It had green forests, blue oceans, and mountains that touched the clouds. 3 million humans called it home. They had built cities and farms and schools. They had raised families and buried their dead in its soil. Now the Nexus was coming to take it. Colonel Joyan Shin stood on a hill overlooking the main city. He was 40 years old, with a scar across his left cheek from an old training accident. He watched the sky and waited for the enemy to arrive. He had 40,000 soldiers under his command. Intelligence reports said the Nexus was sending 500,000. The math was simple. His people were outnumbered more than 10 to 1. Doyan smiled. His lieutenant asked, "Why are you smiling?" "Because they think numbers matter," Doyan replied. "They have no idea what they are walking into." The Nexus fleet arrived 3 days later. They destroyed the orbital defense stations and established control of the space around New Busan. Then they began landing troops. The Nexus soldiers were called the Keth. They were tall and strong by galactic standards. They had 4 arms and thick gray skin. They had conquered dozens of worlds. They had never lost a ground campaign. General Moore commanded the invasion force. He was confident and experienced. He had studied the humans from orbit. He knew their positions, their numbers, their weapons. He knew everything except what mattered. In the advance, more ordered. Crush any resistance. We will control this planet by sunset. The Keth soldiers marched forward. They moved in perfect formation, thousands of them spreading across the landscape like a gray flood. They expected the humans to run. They expected the humans to hide. The humans did neither. The 1st Keth Battalion entered a forest on the edge of the city. They moved slowly, scanning for enemies. The trees were thick and the shadows were dark. Their sensors showed nothing. Then the trees exploded. Human soldiers had buried bombs beneath the roots. They had hidden in holes covered with leaves. They had waited for days without moving, barely breathing, till the enemy was directly above them. The battalion was destroyed in seconds. General Moore received the report with confusion. How had the humans hidden from his sensors? How had they remained motionless for so long? His species could not stay still for more than a few hours. Boredom and restlessness made it impossible. He did not understand that humans had evolved as ambush predators. Patience was written into their blood. The invasion continued. More Keth soldiers advanced. More died. The humans used tactics the Nexus had never seen. They attacked at night when the Keth could barely see. They used the terrain, hiding in caves and buildings and sewers. They set traps everywhere. Bombs under roads. Poison in water supplies. Wires that triggered explosions when touched. But the most frightening thing was not the traps. It was the humans themselves. A Keth squad cornered a human Marine in a destroyed building. The Marine had been shot 3 times. His left arm was broken. Blood covered his face. By any reasonable measure, he was defeated. He kept fighting. The Marine killed 4 Keth soldiers with his one good arm before they finally brought him down. Even then, he grabbed a grenade and pulled the pin. The explosion killed 3 more. The surviving Keth soldiers stood in the rubble, shaking. They had never seen anything like it. Their species surrendered when defeat was certain. It was logical. It was rational. Fighting when you could not win was madness. Humans did not seem to understand this. Colonel Doyon received reports from all across the planet. His soldiers were dying, but they were taking far more enemies with them. The Keth were advancing, but every meter cost them dearly. He found Commander Somi Lee defending a bridge on the Eastern Front. She was 35 years old, with short hair and a quiet voice. She had 12 soldiers under her command. They were facing a Keth battalion of 800. "You should retreat," Doyon told her through the radio. "You cannot hold that position." Somi looked at the approaching enemy. She looked at her soldiers. She looked at the bridge behind her, which led to a refugee camp with 10,000 civilians. "No," she said simply. The battle lasted 6 hours. Somi's squad used every weapon they had. When the ammunition ran out, they used knives. When the knives broke, they used their hands. When they could no longer stand, they crawled. By the end, Somi was the only one alive. She stood in the center of the bridge, covered in blood that was mostly not her own. Around her lay 400 dead Keth soldiers. The remaining Keth stared at her. She was wounded in at least 10 places. Her right eye was swollen shut. She could barely stand, but she raised her broken rifle like a club and waited for them to attack. They did not attack. They ran. General Moore received this report in his command ship. He read it 3 times. He could not believe it. "1 human," he whispered. "1 human killed 400 Keth and made the rest flee. How is this possible?" His advisor, a scientist who studied other species, tried to explain. "Sir, humans evolved on a death world. Their planet has high gravity, toxic atmosphere, and constant environmental threats. They are built to survive. Their bodies can function with injuries that would kill us instantly. Their minds refuse to accept defeat, even when it is logical." "That is insanity," Moore said, as the scientist agreed. "By our standards, it is. But to them, it is simply how they are. They do not surrender because surrender means death to a species that evolved surrounded by predators. Their ancestors who surrender were eaten. Only the stubborn ones survived." Moore stood and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the planet below. Such a small world, such a small population. How could they be so difficult to conquer? "Pull back our forces," he finally said. "We need to reconsider our strategy, sir. We still have the numerical advantage." "Numbers mean nothing against creatures who do not know how to die," Moore replied. "Send a message to the Nexus Council. Tell them we need reinforcements." Many more reinforcements. Invasion force retreated. Of the 500,000 Keth who had landed, fewer than 60,000 returned to their ships. The rest were dead, captured, or missing. Colonel Doyon found Commander Somi in a medical tent. She was unconscious, connected to machines that were keeping her alive. The doctors said she might survive. They were not certain. Dojon sat beside her bed and held her hand. "You did something impossible today," he said softly. "You showed them what we are. You showed them why they should be afraid." He stayed with her until morning. When she finally opened her eyes, the first thing she asked was about her soldiers. "They died heroes," Doyon told her. Somi closed her eyes again. A tear ran down her cheek. "They were not heroes. They were just doing their job," Doyon understood. That was what made humans so terrifying. To them, fighting to the last breath was not heroic. It was not special. It was simply what you did. The Nexus had never faced an enemy like this. They were beginning to realize their mistake. But it was already too late. The war had lasted 6 months. The Nexus had sent fleet after fleet against humanity. Each time, they lost more ships than they destroyed. Each time, humans refused to surrender. Admiral Taiho stood in the war room on Earth's main military station. Star maps covered every wall. Red dots showed enemy positions. Blue dots showed human forces. There were far more red dots than blue ones, but the blue dots were moving forward. Operation Black Tide begins in 12 hours, Taiho announced to his commanders. We hit 17 targets across 4 star systems. Speed and surprise are our advantages. We strike hard, we strike fast, and we disappear before they can respond. General Minho nodded. Our ships are smaller and faster than theirs. We have been fighting defensively for too long. It is time to show them we can attack. The operation was dangerous. Human ships would travel deep into Nexus territory. If anything went wrong, there would be no rescue, no retreat. They would die alone in enemy space. Captain Yunho Jang commanded the destroyer Indomitable. He was 38 years old, with a calm face and steady hands. His ship was one of the oldest in the fleet. It had survived 12 battles. The hull was scarred with plasma burns. One of the engines worked at half power. The life support system failed at least once a week. Yunho loved his ship like a friend. Captain, his engineer said, we should stay behind for this mission. The Indomitable needs repairs. Serious repairs. Yunho looked at his crew. They were tired. They were scared. They had watched friends die on other ships, but not one of them suggested quitting. Does the ship move? Yunho asked. Yes, sir. Barely. Do the weapons fire? Yes, sir. Most of them, Yunho smiled. Then we fight. The Indomitable has never missed a battle. She is not starting now. The operation began at midnight, Earth Standard Time. 17 human battle groups jumped into enemy space simultaneously. They appeared in the middle of Nexus supply lines, military stations, and communication hubs. Chaos followed. The Nexus had never faced an enemy that could strike so deep into their territory. Their defense systems were designed to stop invasions, not raids. By the time they organized a response, the humans were already gone. Yunho's group hit a fuel depot near a Nexus shipyard. The depot supplied 30% of the enemy's eastern fleet. Without it, hundreds of ships would be stranded without power. The battle was short and violent. Human ships darted between enemy defenses like wolves among sheep. The Indomitable took 7 hits. 2 more crew members died. The port weapons array was destroyed, but the depot burned. Millions of tons of fuel exploded in a fireball visible from neighboring star systems. Mission complete, Yunho reported. We are withdrawing. Indomitable, your ship is critically damaged, Command responded. You should retreat to the nearest friendly station for repairs. Yunha looked at his damage reports. His ship was dying. Everyone knew it. Negative, he said. There are 2 more targets on our list. We will hit them first. Captain, that is suicide, Yunho admitted. But those targets matter. If we destroy them, we save thousands of lives. My crew agrees. We continue. Now. The Indomitable fought 2 more battles before finally limping home. By then, the ship was more holes than whole. Life support had failed completely. The crew survived in emergency suits. When they finally docked at a human station, the repair crews stood in silence. They could not believe the ship had made it. Yunho stepped off his vessel and saluted. She did her job, he said simply. Now fix her. We have more fighting to do. While the fleet struck at military targets, Lieutenant Nari Kwan led a different kind of mission. She was an intelligence officer, trained in infiltration and information gathering. She was small and quiet, easy to overlook. That was exactly what made her dangerous. Nara's team captured a Nexus communication hub on a small moon. They fought through the guards and seized the central computer. For 3 hours, Nari downloaded every file she could find. What she discovered changed the war. The Nexus had no ground combat doctrine. For 50,000 years, their wars had been fought entirely in space. When a fleet was destroyed, the losing species surrendered. Planetary invasions were ceremonial. Nobody actually fought on the ground, until humans. The Nexus had no training for this kind of war. Their soldiers were not prepared to fight building by building, street by street. They were not prepared for enemies who hid in the dirt and attacked from shadows. They were not prepared for a species that would die rather than submit. Nari sent her report to General Minho. He read it and began to smile. "We have been fighting the wrong war," he said. "We have been trying to defeat their fleets. But fleets can be replaced. What cannot be replaced is their belief that they always win. We need to break that belief." The strategy changed. Human forces stopped trying to destroy Nexus ships. Instead, they began liberating Nexus worlds. The first planet they took was called Voss. It was a beautiful world. Home to a gentle species of artists and philosophers, they had been Nexus members for 10,000 years. They had never known war. Human marines landed expecting resistance. They found none. The Voss people simply stood in their streets and watched. They did not fight. They did not run. They waited to die. Sergeant Ji Wukong led the first squad into the capital city. She was 26 years old, fierce, and determined. She had lost her brother in the Battle of New Busan. She had every reason to hate the Nexus and everyone in it. Instead, she lowered her weapon. "We are not here to hurt you," she told the terrified Voss through her translator. "We are here to free you." The Voss did not understand. In their experience, conquerors killed. Conquerors enslaved. Conquerors took everything and left nothing. But the humans did not kill. They did not enslave. They set up medical stations. They distributed food. They protected civilians from danger. They treated prisoners with kindness. An old Voss elder approached Jiwoo on the third day. He was trembling, clearly terrified, but he needed to ask a question. "Why?" he said. "Why do you not destroy us? We are your enemies." Jiwoo thought about her brother. She thought about all the friends she had lost. She thought about the hatred in her heart and the desire for revenge. Then she thought about her mother, who had taught her that strength without mercy was just cruelty. "You are not our enemies," Jiwoo said. "Your leaders chose to attack us. You did not. We do not punish the innocent for the crimes of their rulers." The elder stared at her for a long moment. Then he began to cry. "We have been in the Nexus for 10,000 years, he whispered. "They told us they protected us. They told us the galaxy was dangerous. They never told us there were species like you." Word spread. The humans were different. The humans were merciful. The humans fought like demons, but treated the defeated with respect. More planets surrendered without fighting. More species began to question the Nexus. More cracks appeared in the coalition that had ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years. General Minho watched the reports with satisfaction. "Is how you win wars," he said. "Not by killing everyone. By showing them there is a better way." Admiral Taiho agreed, but he also knew the truth. Mercy was strategy. Kindness was tactics. Humans were showing the galaxy a different path. But they were doing it to win, and they were winning. The Nexus Council gathered in emergency session. For the first time in 40,000 years, they faced the possibility of defeat. Not just military defeat. Something worse there. Subjects were losing faith. Ambassador Kell watched the council argue and remembered the human admiral who had warned them. He had called humans a species that did not know how to stop. Kell was beginning to understand what that meant. 2 years had passed since the war began. The galaxy had changed in ways no one expected. The Nexus had lost over 40,000 ships. 63 star systems had fallen to human forces. Their economy was collapsing. Species that had been loyal members for thousands of years were demanding answers. Some were demanding independence. Coalition that had ruled the stars for 50,000 years was dying. Ambassador Kell sat alone in his courtesan remembered the day he had laughed at Admiral Taiho. He remembered dismissing the human warning as primitive boasting. He remembered voting for war without hesitation. He had been so certain, so confident, so completely wrong. Now Kell had a choice to make. He could continue fighting until the Nexus was destroyed. Or he could do something that no Nexus diplomat had done in 40,000 years. He could ask for peace. The human flagship Soul's Pride floated in orbit above a conquered Nexus world. It was a massive vessel, built during the war using technology that humans had developed themselves. Not copied from the Nexus, not stolen. Created through human ingenuity and desperation. Admiral Taiho stood on the observation deck and watched the stars. He was tired. 2 years of war had aged him. His hair was completely gray now. His face was lined with exhaustion. But his eyes were still sharp. "Admiral," his officer said, "we have received a request for communication. It is from Ambassador Kell. He wants to meet." Taiho turned slowly. "Kell, the same Kell who told us we would be conquered in 3 weeks." "Yes, sir. He is requesting permission to board." "Alone and unarmed?"
Out.
Taiho thought about it. 2 years ago, Kell had rejected peace. 2 years ago, Kell had recommended war. 2 years ago, millions of people on both sides were still alive. "Let him come," Taiho said, "but search him thoroughly." Kell arrived in a small shuttle. He wore simple clothes with no symbols of rank or authority. His movements were slow and careful. It's like an old man afraid of falling. When he stepped onto the observation deck, he stopped and stared at the view. Below them, the wreckage of a Nexus battle fleet drifted silently through space. Hundreds of broken ships, thousands of frozen bodies. "We did that," Kell whispered. "We chose this." Taiho stood beside him. He did not offer comfort or sympathy. He simply waited. "I have studied your species," Kell said finally. "I have read your history, your wars, your disasters, your mistakes." He turned to face Taiho. "You have killed more of your own kind than all Nexus conflicts combined. You developed weapons that could destroy your entire planet. You've nearly used them several times, we know," Taiho said. Goskel continued. "You stopped. Every time you reached the edge of extinction, you stepped back. You chose to survive." He shook his head slowly. "We did not believe you were capable of such control. We thought you were simply savages who got lucky. And now?" Kell's thin mouth twisted into something that might have been a smile. "Now I understand. You are not lucky. You are something far more frightening. You are a species that knows exactly how terrible you can be, and you choose to be better." Taiho said nothing. He had heard similar words from other species during the war. Respect mixed with fear. Admiration mixed with horror. "I am here to ask for peace," Kell said. "The Nexus Council has authorized me to offer terms. Full independence for all human worlds. Withdrawal from your territory. Reparations for damages." "That is generous," Taiho observed. "It is necessary," Kell replied. "We cannot win this war. We know that now. Every day we fight, we lose more ships, more worlds, more faith from our own members. If we continue, the Nexus will collapse completely." "And you think we would prefer a weakened Nexus to a destroyed one?" Kell hesitated. "I do not know. Your species is difficult to predict, but I hope you prefer peace to endless war. I hope you are tired of killing." Taiho looked out at the debris field. He thought about all the people who had died, human and alien. Soldiers and civilians, mothers and children. "We are tired," he admitted. "We never wanted this war. We tried to warn you." "I know," Kell said, "and I am sorry. I am sorry I did not listen. I am sorry for all the death my arrogance caused. I cannot undo what has happened. I can only try to stop what might happen next." The peace negotiations lasted 3 months. President Yuna Kim led the human delegation. She was older now, her hair completely white, her body frail, but her mind was still sharp. The Nexus offered everything humans could want. Full coalition membership, equal standing with species that had existed for millions of years, access to technology and resources beyond imagination, a seat at the table that governed the galaxy. Yuna refused it all. "We do not want to rule the galaxy," she said. "We do not want to join your coalition. We want something simpler." "What do you want?" the Nexus representative asked. "To be left alone. To live in peace. To raise our children without fear." She paused. "But we will offer something in return." She proposed a mutual defense pact. Any species that requested human protection would receive it. Any species attacked by aggressors could call on human forces for help. In exchange, the galaxy would respect human territory and independence. Some called it mercy. Some called it weakness. General Minho called it strategy. Why conquer when you can be owed favors? He explained to his officers. In 50 years, every species in this galaxy will remember that humans saved them. They will trade with us. They will share technology with us. They will trust us. That is worth more than any empire. The Treaty of Earth was signed on a cool autumn morning. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered in a great hall built specifically for the occasion. Humans and aliens stood together, not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals. Ambassador Kell signed on behalf of the Nexus. His hand trembled as he wrote his name. Afterward, he found Admiral Tai-Ho standing on a balcony overlooking the Earth city below. The sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and red, colors that would blind most Nexus species. Your people call this a victory, Kell observed. It is, Tai-Ho agreed. But you do not celebrate. Your soldiers are not boasting in the streets. Your leaders are not making grand speeches. Why? Tai-Ho was silent for a long moment. He watched the sun sink toward the horizon. He thought about all the people who had not survived to see this day. "'Cause we know what war costs," he said finally. "We have been paying that price since before we left the caves. Victory means we get to stop killing for a while." He turned to face Kell. "We warned you. We did not want this." Kell nodded slowly. "The galaxy spent 50,000 years believing we were the pinnacle of civilization. It took humanity 2 years to prove us wrong." He paused. "I wonder what else we were wrong about." Tai-Ho smiled. It was a small smile, tired and sad but genuine. His teeth showed slightly, a gesture that still made Kell nervous after all this time. "Stick around," Tai-Ho said. "You will find out." They stood together as the sun disappeared below the horizon. The stars came out one by one, filling the sky with ancient light. Somewhere out there, millions of species were watching Earth. Some were afraid. Some were curious. Some were hopeful. All of them were asking the same question. What would humanity do next? Tai-Ho did not know the answer. No one did. Humans had surprised the galaxy once. They would probably surprise it again. But for now, there was peace. For now, there was rest. For now, the killing had stopped. Tai-Ho thought about his son, who had survived the war. He thought about his granddaughter, who had been born during the final battle. He thought about all the generations that would come after. Growing up in a galaxy that finally understood what humanity was, not monsters, not savages, not conquerors, just survivors, just fighters, just humans, beings who knew the darkness inside themselves and chose to walk toward the light anyway. The war was over. The future was beginning, and for the first time in 50,000 years, the galaxy was truly free.